Coming up on the show today, Egypt selects Citibank, JP Morgan and 3 other lenders for its dollar-denominated bond. Zimbabwe Central Bank plans to introduce new dollar note and coins. Kenyan parliamentary panel recommends rate cut repeal. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Business Incorporated. I'm Chimezi Obi Iwawe. Let's begin with the markets in Africa, where some of the major indices we track were in the green territory at intraday, with the Nigerian stock index gaining the most by 0.53%. Meanwhile, the JSE index in South Africa shared 0.44%. The EGX 30 in Egypt was also positive as the index added 0.14%. Kenya closed positive on Tuesday. And market sentiments in the Gulf region were positive at intraday, with the Abu Dhabi index soaring the most by almost 2%, while Dubai's index added 0.55%. In Qatar, the index edged up 0.62%, with lender Masraf Al Rayan adding 0.8% and Qatar Islamic Bank gaining 0.5%. Saudi's index also added 0.33% at intraday. And in Europe, stocks traded mixed this morning amid reports that China is reluctant to commit to President Donald Trump's demands that he make significant purchases of American agricultural products. Well, markets' focus is also on the U.S. Fed interest rate decision. Let's talk to Chelsea Dolani at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Hello, Chelsea. Good afternoon. Well, the Federal Reserve is meeting today and, of course, will release its latest interest rate decision later. What are investors expecting?
Investors are expecting almost 100% priced into the market at this point a interest rate cut, another quarter basis point of a interest rate cut here. This would be the third interest rate cut that the Fed has done this year. What investors are really going to be looking for is any sort of signal about what the Fed is going to do next. If this is going to be their last interest rate cut for a while, or if they think there's a need for more policy easing going forward. The Fed has essentially said that they've been cutting rates not because they think the U.S. is in a recession or a recession is imminent, but instead it's more of an insurance policy against a downturn later on. So they haven't sounded extremely concerned about the health of the U.S. economy, but I think investors are going to be looking for any sort of forward guidance, any sort of statement in Jerome Powell's post-meeting wrap-up or in the press conference about sort of what their assessment of the U.S. economy is right now, and if they think there is a need for more interest rate cuts going forward. That could definitely have an impact on the market if they do signal that they think that there should be more interest rate cuts over the next several months, because the market really isn't pricing that in right now. So I think definitely the sort of what they're thinking about the future is going to be the key market driver here.
All right, a couple of corporate news on the wires today. Germany's Bayer said it has seen a surge in lawsuits related to the weed killer Roundup. What does this mean for the company?
For Bayer, this definitely puts more pressure on them to reach a settlement with the plaintiffs in the U.S. So this has been going on for over a year now. The first cases began to roll out in August of 2018, and it's wiped about $30 billion off of Bayer's market value. So they've really seen a pretty significant stock impact here. Now that the number of cases is climbing, the number of lawsuits is really surging. They need to sort of find a way to settle these cases before they all go to court, because in the U.S. the cases that have gone to court, Bayer has ended up paying in the tens of $1 million range for each of those. So that could be an astronomical cost if all of these cases go to court. So Bayer's line has been that they do want to settle these cases. They're open to a settlement. They want it to be global. The sticking point is really going to be how much it costs for them. In the beginning, there were ranges from $2 billion to $20 billion, and over the past couple of months, it seems that they've sort of come to this number around $10 billion. So I think that's sort of the arena that investors are looking for, a settlement in the $8 to $12 billion range, really. And in terms of a timeline, they expect there are a couple cases scheduled to begin in January. So I think in the next couple of months, you could see some movement on these settlements.
And Deutsche Bank reported 859 million euro loss in the third quarter as it works through a restructuring program. Is a turnaround close for Deutsche Bank?
I think these results really show how far Deutsche Bank still has to go. This was a bigger than expected loss, and analysts had been expecting Deutsche Bank to post a loss here, but they hadn't expected it to be this bad. And we're seeing a pretty extreme reaction on the stock price. It's down about 7% here in Frankfurt. I think, Deutsche Bank announced this restructuring in July. They said they would cut about 18,000 jobs. And there was a lot of optimism because Deutsche Bank has been underperforming for quite a while, and investors were looking for a big change. This quarter's results were really a disappointment to investors. The four core businesses that Deutsche Bank is focusing on, all of them, except for one, posted revenue declines. Really the only bright spot was the corporate bank, which did see revenue increase, but especially in the investment bank and fixed income, they saw pretty steep declines. And those are really the core of what Deutsche Bank is trying to revive here. So it definitely raises concern among investors that this restructuring is not going as well as they had hoped for.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. Let's continue to monitor the FOMC meeting.